everybody, this is Erica Serwin from Pink Buckaroo Designs, and today I'm going to show you how I watercolored this card with markers. We have some wonderful markers that have the same ink as our regular pads, and I'm going to show you how I did this by using just markers and an aqua painter. Alright, so the stamps that I'm using is called Santa's Gifts, and it is from the main catalog. It is not in the holiday catalog. It's actually in the little holiday section of our annual catalog. And we're going to use Santa, and we're going to use the little tree and the little bird. So I have already stamped them on watercolor paper to save some time, and I strongly recommend that you use watercolor paper when you're trying to achieve this look. It's going to work much better. And before I start, I also want to say that this is something that takes practice. I'm even on the video not sure how mine's going to turn out. Every time it's a little bit different, so I encourage you to take your time, sit down, take a deep breath, and just play. Give yourself some time to play with these aqua painters and the markers, and be forgiving of yourself too, because this is not something that you should expect to be able to do immediately the first time. And I do want to show you what the first one I did yesterday looks like. So you can see I realized that the control with my aqua painter wasn't how I wanted it to be. You can see it bled up into his beard and got real messy, so I scratched it, stamped him again, and started again. So sometimes you may have to do that, and that's okay. So just know that this is something that is going to take some practice. All right, so let me get my paper over here to protect my table. I'm going to put him there. And this is an aqua painter. They come in a set of 2, and you fill them with either water or alcohol. They're refillable, and it's like a paintbrush on the end. So that's what I'm going to use today. You kind of squeeze that tip to get some water down in there, and that's going to smear our color. Now, when you're working with this, you need to just do little sections, one little section at a time. And you need to think about where his shadows would be. So the color is always going to be darker wherever a shadow would present. So underneath his arm would be darker. Behind the fuzz on his hat, because his fuzz is in front, that would be a little bit darker. Under his beard would be darker. Again, behind the fuzz and under the fuzz. So think about that as you go. All right, so I'm going to use the fat end of my Stampin' Right marker, and I have lots of real reds. I'm going to use this one. It's a little bit better. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw a line right where I know that it's going to be dark. I'm just going to kind of go right there. All right, now I'm going to get my aqua painter, and I'm going to just kind of pull that color. See that? I'm already getting out of the line, so I need to slow down and pull that color where I think it needs to go. Now, if you feel like you have too much water, which I do feel like, take a paper towel and blot it and start over. Okay, so add some more. Looks like we need some more ink. My markers have been used so much that it looks like I may just need to order some new ones. We've got one that's low on ink and one that's got a messed up tip because I just love them. I use them all the time. All right, so even though it's wet, I added some more marker, some more ink. I'm going to kind of pull it to the middle. These are the darker spots, and that's okay. And it's going to look different as it dries. All right, I'm kind of feeling happy with that, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to turn this so my hand doesn't get in that. And again, I'm going to draw my line right there above that belt, because it would be a little bit darker there, and definitely here under his arm, under his beard. I'm going to take that aqua painter and just start smoothing and pulling that ink. The more water you have, the more likely you are to get out of the lines. Now, I am going to cut this guy out, so it's okay if I get out of the line over here. But as far as his beard and that fuzzy little trim there, I do not want to get out of the lines there because there's no covering that up. All right, I'm going to go back with my marker. Yes, it's wet. That's all right. I'm adding in some more color here. You don't want too much water because then it's going to start dripping and running, which it looks like it might start to do over here. So I'm going to pull a little bit of that color there. Come back. with this and just spreading. I'm not even squeezing the water anymore. All right, a little bit more. You can see how this is not a perfect science. So just give yourself some time to play and see how that color is gonna behave for you. All right, I'm gonna let that dry and we're gonna come back and see. All right, so let's come up here on his hat. And where those lines are, that usually means there's a darker area, so put a lot of ink there. Now, when you've used your aqua painter for one color and you want to switch to another color, you just need to take it and scribble it out on some scratch paper, your grid paper, whatever, to get all that color out. All right, he's looking pretty good. I think we definitely need some more color here. And I'm getting out of the lines and I don't like that. If I wasn't doing a video, I might start over there. But I might be able to cover it up too with we're gonna use some dazzling details in a minute, which is just so, so cute. All right, so I'm just gonna keep coloring all these spots slowly but surely. Adding some more. I need some more color here because this is a dark area behind that trim. I hope I'm not getting my head in the video, but it's hard not to get close because I like to get really close so I can see. All right, so let me run that clear. And I'm going to move on to his face and show you what I use. This is Blushing Bride, and you have to go really, really light. The reason I'm using the ink is because I don't have a Blushing Bride marker. Either I've lost it or I just never had it. I'm not sure. So I have to use the ink here, and I'm just going to get a little tiny bit from the lid. And I don't want it to be too dark because if this color is too dark, it's not cute. So I'm just going to fill it in. Let's see, I need a little bit more. Santa's pretty pale, living up there at the North Pole. We don't want to give him too much of a tan. There we go. All right, so now his boots, and I used Basic Gray. And this is interesting after it dries. It doesn't look like it's doing much here, but I found that after it dried, it looked good. The top of their foot is going to be shiny. So you want to leave that white. I don't know. We'll have to see how that dries and come back. It looked really good on my other one. I don't know. We'll come back and look at that. Now for his belt, that was just too fine of a line. So I'm going to just take my marker. Luckily, with that bleeding in there, you really aren't going to be able to see it. I'm using this Basic Gray marker to go over his belt. All right, one thing I didn't do was right here under his beard. Fill that in with a marker. All right, now for the tree, I used Cucumber Crush, and I did just a little bit. This one's a little tricky because you don't want to get that color on those little lights there, those little ornaments or lights, whatever they are. So I did a little like that, and then I'm going to just fill it in. The smaller they are, the trickier it is to really control that water. But I feel like as opposed to a blender pen, you get a better watercolor look with the aqua painter. The blender pen is great too, I like it, but as far as this really watercolory look, the aqua painter is much better. All right. And we're going to try the Early Espresso for this pot. And I found, you'll see that the Early Espresso has a green tint to it. As I pulled that color out, it really was very greenish. And I wasn't happy with it at first, but once it dried, I really did like it. You really can't judge these things until they have dried because they look very different. There we go. All right, let that dry a little bit. Now for the bird, I used Tempting Turquoise. I think that's what this is. Yep, Tempting Turquoise. I'm going to just draw a line under his wing like that and up here. And because he's so tiny, we don't want to get too much ink in there. And then whatever is left there on your aqua painter, you can just do his wing, because his wing is much lighter than the part under him. All right, and then, whoops, wrong lid. And then I use the marker. Just when those lines are too little, I just go right back in with that marker. All right, let's fill in some of these little lights here. I did real red and Tempting Turquoise, and they cover up that bleeding real well too. And I don't have my daffodil marker, but that's what I did with the stars. All right, so once you're happy with him, you need to let him dry a little bit, and then you're going to take your really good paper snips and get as close to him as you can, like this. This is going to help you have better control over your cutting. Cut all that extra stuff out as much as you can. And then while you're cutting, you want to cut on the outside of that line. If you leave a little bit of white, it's okay, because we're going to put him on a background popped up, and you won't really see it, but you will see if the black line is skinnier in places than other places. Now also notice how I'm turning the paper. I'm not turning my scissors. Keep your scissors right straight in front of you, and just very slowly. And this is hard for me to do without it right in front of my face, so we'll see what he looks like. Now this guy probably could use some more color. I probably would go back and add a little bit more color. He's a little bit washed out. I didn't put enough on there, and that's the thing about drying. Once you see it dry, it looks very different. So give it some time to dry and then go back and add some more as you need it. Now for the sake of the video, I'm going to cut these guys out and I'm going to come right back. All right, we're back, we're dry, and we're all cut out. And I also wanted to point out that I did add a little bit more color to him. I felt like he was a little too pink, so I did add a little bit more color around his belt. And he could probably stand to use a little bit more, but we're just going to go ahead and move on. I took a piece of watercolor paper and cut it out with one of the Project Life card framelits. And then I took the aqua painter and some Pool Party and just lightly went over it to give it that light washed look. And I've cut out all of my little pieces, and I'm going to stick them on with dimensionals. You guys know how much I love dimensionals, so of course these guys are going to look really cool with dimensionals. All right, now the bird, I did want to point out that the bird, when you cut him out, he has little legs, and I just cut his sweet little legs off. That's all right, little bird. Santa's going to hold you. You don't need your legs. So don't worry about cutting around those, okay? You're just going to slide him there in Santa's hands like his legs are hiding there. I know, it's very sad. He lost his legs for a card, but it was worth it. All right, so now I'm going to take my smoky slate and my aqua painter, and I'm just going to kind of do a shadow under here of where these guys are standing. We don't want them just floating around in the sky. They need something to stand on. So this is smoky slate, and I just kind of did a wash there on the bottom, and you could even just do a little bit darker under his feet to show his shadow, and the same with the tree. All right, now while those pieces were drying, I went ahead and prepared my card base, which is a real red card base. It is 4 1/4 by 11, and I scored it in half at 5 1/2. I put a 3-inch wide piece of real red designer series paper. This is from the Brights DSP stack, and a piece of corrugated cardstock, 1 inch by 4 1/4. I also tied some of this cute little green ribbon up here. This is in the holiday catalog, and I love it. I love the width of it. I think it's great. I'm going to add on some little pom-pom trim and my sentiment. And you know what? My sentiment is going to be backwards because my bow went on the other side. So that wouldn't be very good, right, you guys? So let's take this. We can solve that problem and move the bow over here. And we're going to kind of have to finagle the bow because he wants to turn. It's kind of like the part in your hair, you know. It doesn't want to go the other way. When I tie a bow, I can always tell which way it wants to go. But this guy, sorry guy, you're going to have to go that way. All right, let's get a metallic clothespin, our sentiment, and some real red pom-pom trim. And see if I can clip this on here. We're just going to use this metallic clothespin to hold these on like that. And hold that down. I'm going to take a dimensional, put it underneath. Well, that came off. We'll have to add that back on in a second. There we go, just like that. All right, so here is our other little piece, and we're gonna have to move this around, aren't we? Let's see, you're gonna need to come over here. Well, you know, sometimes things just fit perfectly, and other times you're thinking, what in the world did I do? I'm looking at my original. Okay, I got it. Now, overlapping, and it fits perfectly. One last thing I wanted to show you. This is called Dazzling Details, and it's like glitter glue, and it dries in a fine glitter, which is really nice. And I'm just going to kind of put it down here along the, along the edge, kind of smooth it out. Come on, little tree, we need you to stay. And you could even, I was talking earlier about how I colored him a little bit. We could put a little bit of that on there, and that's going to cover up those little bleeding red marks. Put some of that on his suit, and that is a fast fix. Maybe put some here on the pot, and there you have it. All right, guys, here's my original all done. It's a little bit better than the second. But you can see that they look very different. I did them the same way, but they look different. So every time you watercolor, expect a different outcome. It's never going to end up exactly the same. I hope that you feel inspired to use your markers. They are a great way to add ink without spending a ton of money. If you can't afford all the ink pads, invest in the markers because they are just as good. All right, guys, thanks so much. Bye-bye.